Welcome to Annapolis Mosaics. Our show spotlights people in our city who are involved in activities designed to promote good human relations. I am Michael Keller, the chair of the Annapolis Human Relations Commission and your host for the show. The Human Relations Commission is a city board that seeks to promote equal opportunity and to eliminate discrimination. My guest today is Annapolis Police Chief Michael Priesthood.
Hi, Mike.
Chief, thank you for joining us today
Good to
on
be with you today.
Annapolis Mosaics.
I'm happy to be here.
In the time that you have been police chief here in Annapolis, what would you identify as being your greatest achievements and successes in the area of law enforcement?
Well, first, and thanks, Mike. It's a good question, but I really want to back up and say that I'm new here. We're starting out. We've got a lot to do, and I'm very happy so far with the progress that we're seeing. So I want to kind of temper the answer to that question and say that there are a number of successes, but I don't want to say that they're mine. I want to be able to say that as we're going along, we share these successes with the community and with the good operators, police officers, and help with the police department. I think that, just to go back, the four main focuses that we're on right now, that we've been starting as of last year, in the middle of last year, were a hiring improvement and the number of police officers that we can put on the street and the speed with which we can do it. So we have some success with that. I'll certainly talk about that. Mm-hmm. The way we're conducting our street level operations and our enforcement has changed, and I believe for the better, and some of the results I believe bear that out. Community outreach has always been good in the city of Annapolis with the police department, so we're capitalizing on some of the good things that have been done and making certain improvements where we see the need to do that. Mm-hmm. And our technology, things that we can do with our IT folks and how we're involving the community and some of the future that we're some of the things that we're certainly doing in the future. We're seeing some progress on that. So all those things are all good. The biggest news item that I think should sit with the public well is that crime for 2008, as we left the year, was markedly lower than it was in 2007. I know that under Chief Johnson there had been some very good gains in crime as far as reducing crime from year to year, but I believe it was a record over the years, and certainly in the last 15 years. We look at the violence and we look at numbers, but numbers don't tell all the tales. We look at what's going on the street, and we're hearing some very good stories from people who are seeing less nuisance crime and being affected by less crime in general. So we're happy to see that the crime numbers are steadily going down, and we're hearing a lot from the community is that folks aren't seeing the level of problems on the street corners. And that to me is one of the biggest successes, mm-hmm. and one that we're going to capitalize on.
Mm-hmm. Could you talk about, you'd mentioned your recruitment efforts. Could you give us a little more detail on that? And I'm going to actually be doing some follow-up with you about some of the specific things that you mentioned. Let's start with recruitment.
Okay. Well, recruitment and hiring is really a work in progress. You know, I came on in April, as most are aware. We had about 106 police mm-hmm. officers, and we're just strictly talking in police officers right now, because as we go along, mm-hmm. we have a lot of very able staff that are civilians and doing a great job. But we're about 111 now, with 3 more in the academy, and we're looking to hire 3 more that would be lateral officers from other agencies. So we're trying to keep up. We're trying to beat the rate of attrition. And when I showed up in the middle of last year, we seemed to lose more police officers than we could hire. So in trying to make substantive changes, we have partnered with our human resources group downtown, and we have hired a professional recruiter. We're marketing 4 or 5 newspapers out of the area. We're looking for not only, of course, residents and persons that are close to Annapolis that are qualified for police, but we're looking as far as New York, and we're looking in Pennsylvania. We're looking Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Harrisburg, and throughout the metropolitan areas, because it's a very tough market. So we want to be attractive to candidates. Mm-hmm. We offer an outstanding opportunity to be a police officer here. We have great benefits. We compete with just about every agency. We certainly compete with all of our local friends and agencies around Annapolis and in Anne Arundel County. So that's a big step. If we can get to the number we want, and we are slated to have upward of about 131 police officers, when we start to hire more and we continue to get them on, we can do more things and be more exposed to programs and be in the public.
You'd also mentioned your desire to get more of the officers out onto the street. I know one of your priorities is to expand patrols in Annapolis.
Right.
Can you share your plans on that and anything that's
Well,
taking
the
place?
officers are doing a very good job, and all levels of the police supervision are doing what we need them to do. And they're out there on foot. We have re-energized our commitment to public housing. So, where in the past it was certainly, it had to have been an emphasis, we are continuing, we are even more so emphasizing where we're putting our police officers. So our foot patrol and our canine patrol is increased dramatically in areas that we see that have the greatest need for that. Foot patrol is something that's expected, and it is being done by patrol officers. These are officers that are handling 911 calls, and when they're not out on those 911 calls, we expect them, and they're doing a great job of being out in public and on foot. We have 7 police posts. We have 6 posts actually in the downtown area. So we want to make sure that we staff patrol with a minimum of 7 police officers. Sometimes we have upward of 10. And at the same time, I'm making sure that we have our specialized units, our flex operations patrolling the areas during hours that need the most police attention. So we continue to hire more police, put them out in specialized groups, drug enforcement, flex enforcement, and we have foot patrol. So we're trying to cover all ends of that.
About what size is the department? Give our viewers a little bit of a sense of what the size of the department is. Because I think some people have this vision that you've got huge numbers of officers,
we want to make,
and we're a small city. But
we want to make sure that's in perspective. So, Mike,
Yeah.
that's really a great question. Annapolis is less than 8 square miles. We have, areas that are neighborhood-based. We have patrol posts that encompass several neighborhoods. And if there's, say, 50 neighborhoods in Annapolis, one post may have 8 or so neighborhoods easily within that confines of where they're patrolling. So we have on any given day, as I said, 6 to 10 police officers handling calls, walking foot, integrating with the public, and doing what police work's all about. They're out there trying to service as many things as they can. They're responsive to the calls, and we want them to be proactive as well. At the same time, I have about 20 police officers in a specialized team, flex operations, which includes drugs, an intelligence unit, people who are serving warrants, officers that are out there trying to find what we call on-view offenses, nuisance activity, drug enforcement. So they're taking that measure, they're proactive, and they're in areas that have predominantly been exposed to more crime, so they're suppressing the crime in advance. And as a result, the call volume will go down, and the need for police attention on the rear end, the service end, drops down as the crime drops down, because we're discouraging basically in-your-face activity, nuisances and so forth. We're making sure that the people who are otherwise committing the crime are off the streets.
you'd mentioned in your introductory remarks that you're making greater use of technology. Technology, of course, is a wonderful instrument to use in terms of being able to supplement the actual personnel that you have. How is the Annapolis Police Department making top use of technology?
Well, one of the most important aspects of technology, one, is to keep up with where we have to be so that we can use the data to preemptively determine what could be a crime problem in the future. And I say that it sounds mystic and so forth. We look at what's going on currently, and we look at historic trends, and we want to make sure, and we see similarity. We want to make sure that police officers, and we're using our resources, the officers and supervisors are deploying in areas where we're seeing the problems and where we've experienced it. So we use mapping. Now, when I arrived in the middle of last year, there was mapping capability. I believe it wasn't as emphasized as it is now. So we purchased and we've acquired, and we're getting even greater equipment so that we can map where the crimes are occurring, and that officers can have in their hands this information and know in advance as well. You know, we're using camera technology. We have identified certain grants that are in place right now. We're making some acquisitions with cameras, and the future of Annapolis, with the help of the community, would be to find the best, most strategic locations for cameras. You know, our dispatcher equipment is all state-of-the-art. We're an enhanced 911 center, so we're producing real call information, generating maps on our records management. We need to improve that. We have older technology, so we bought and we're buying newer stuff, and so we're pleased with that. Now, there's a number of other smaller technology upgrades. We can read tags. We have electronic tag reading. We have a greater number of more capable radio systems, and just a slew of things that we need to do in a modern police department.
Several years ago, I was at a bed and breakfast in San Antonio, and one of the people that was at our table, you meet some very interesting people at bed and breakfasts, and this individual was head of the detective force for the city of Phoenix, and he said the one thing that he hated the most were the CSI programs. He said the CSI programs raise expectations almost to the level of science fiction for police for police departments. They say, well, look what they did on CSI Miami or CSI New York. Do you share that view?
We have to fight that image, and unfortunately, and sometimes for the good too. The shows are glamorous. They make it look like we can solve crimes immediately, and that the technicians are out there finding the answers overnight. And it's a very difficult road to solve certain crimes. But on the note that you mentioned, we are increasing our capabilities with our crime lab. A huge goal, and if I let it slip, I'm remiss, is to hire a professional crime lab coordinator, a manager, and to have our 24-hour-a-day crime lab service so that we can process scenes with greater ability and quicker. No, I think that I think it's an outstanding tool. There's a lot to be said. Without it, we can't do a thing. Using fingerprints and DNA, the right photographs for court presentation, and it's one of the it's something it's a marvel, but it is police work. I think we may be running out of time, Mike, but there we go. So so the crime lab is what police work is about on the detective end, and we're going to get an even better ability with that.
We're going to take a break now, but when we return, I will be talking with the chief about the community outreach and involvement and how the citizens of Annapolis can get involved in helping our police. We've been talking this morning with Annapolis Police Chief Michael Priestoup. Chief Priestoup, it's my understanding that there is a Capital Cities campaign for safe streets. Could you tell our viewers a little bit about that?
The Capital City Safe Streets started in Annapolis in about February of last year. And it was born of a great idea, a lot of support from the governor and Speaker Bush to allow the state resources to come to the table to help Annapolis solve some difficult crime problems. Really what it amounted to and continues is a cooperation between the city of Annapolis, by and large the police department, and some major players in the state of Maryland, Department of Juvenile Justice, Parole and Probation, of course corrections, our friends in the state's attorney's office in Anne Arundel County, our sheriff's office, so forth. And these folks come to the table and we talk about ways to solve crime problems. And there are a lot of resources that we're seeing now that we hadn't had in the past. Never mind the fact that there is a funding stream, which is excellent, and we're able to purchase and to acquire certain things to enable the technology, but we're using these people who are right there, front runners in the criminal justice system, to communicate with them and cooperate in ways we couldn't before to identify certain violent offenders so that we can remove them from the streets. And in short, some of the partnerships take, for instance, parole and probation. Without those folks and without the agreements that we have and without the level of communication, we may never know right away, as we do now, who's wanted, and so we can quickly find them and remove them from the streets and impose sanctions and enhance our prosecution efforts with folks that are committing the lion's share, in some cases, of crime in Annapolis. So it is a collective, cooperative agreement that started. It's been highly successful. We have a whole lot of great results I could share, and it may be a better time to talk about maybe an hour later we can talk about some of the things that have happened, but as a result, we've arrested 30 very violent individuals who we had right in front of us, and we recommunicate that to the agencies, and then the agencies, for instance, parole and probation, now know who we've gotten, and we automate this information. It's great. And I think that there's a lot to be learned, and there's a lot more to do, but we're very thankful for the level of involvement that the state of Maryland has given us, and we're seeing some excellent results. So it is a work in progress, but we're happy so far with where we are.
It's my understanding, Chief, that one of your priorities is to enhance community involvement and outreach into police work. What are you doing in this area?
Well, as I said, Mike, when I showed up, and there's a lot of this is old and not new, and in short of a better word, it's great. The level of police community relationship in Annapolis is outstanding. And I've mentioned before, and I don't miss an opportunity to say that I haven't seen this level of community police interaction in my past go with two other police agencies, including Baltimore. You know, officers in Annapolis are very tuned in with the community, and the programs that we have are very oriented to success, both in the way we communicate with the community and in certain things that we're doing. And I'll give you an example. You know, we have beyond the foot patrol and beyond the fact that we're out there offering scooter registration and interacting with certain operational things with them. We have youth fishing camps, we have soccer camps, we have police camps. And this means an officer who acts as a mentor is out there with youth. Some are at-risk youth in the city of Annapolis, and they're showing these children, you know, what it is really to be a police officer, how they can contribute to the community, and it gives another face to law enforcement. We're not always out there arresting people. We're not always out there telling them to get off the corner. So we have great relationships, I think. Comparatively, we have very good relationships with certain communities, and we're having an even expanded role in that. Now, you know, Annapolis has about 1,600 members of Neighborhood Watch. And if my numbers are right, we've recruited as many as 100 new ones in the last quarter. And that's not a small number. And these folks are out there every day. They're the eyes and ears of the community, beyond the 911 calls. They're making calls, they're contacting their officers, they're reaching out to them, and they're talking about problems so we can resolve them, so that they're not bigger problems later. So, you know, we have outstanding programs with the community. We continue to. Our relationship with Housing Authority, the City of Annapolis, is, I believe, probably no better than it's ever been. We have an agreement with them. We're operating differently in Housing Authority, and the community seems to support that, you know, with great vigor. And we've done safe zones. We put police officers, and we've collected we've collected agencies, and we are having the health department help us. So we set up booths and services for people in neighborhoods that are disproportionately affected by violence. We're seeing a lot of community support. And to let you know on the horizon certain things, if you want, Mike, I can tell you we're going to have a Citizens Academy in Annapolis. Very successful where it has been tried in Baltimore. My experience has shown, you know, we're out there, we can bring communities into the police department and embrace them and show people who might be suspicious of some of the things that we do that we're doing what they need us to do, and we're educating them with this.
How does the Citizens Academy work?
Well,
it's an interesting concept.
I think it's a great concept, and it was fantastic where it's been tried. What it is, in short, is 5 or 6 weeks that we earmark out. We notify members of the community who want to be part of it that come into the police department, and they're basically taught some of the things that we teach other police. Law enforcement issues, integrity, what we expect in the academy. The state's attorney comes in and talks about certain crime, the way we prosecute cases, bring technology in, how that's going to affect, and what we can expect and what the community ought to expect with them, and domestic violence, how our canine and our SWAT team operate. And so, you know, we show everybody, we embrace the concept of law enforcement and community involvement, and we make sure that people see that, and it's a great opportunity to ask questions over a 6-week period.
I want to give a plug to the Community Watch program. I'm the block captain for the Community Watch on my street.
Thanks, Mike.
We've got virtually unanimous participation in terms of taking part in that program, and I know that it was instrumental in providing clues that led to the apprehension of a burglary suspect.
You know, And just to say, it's important that people understand that there's anonymity with it. You know, what we have is we have a register of names and participants, and when people call the number that they're supposed to call, and if they even call 911, they're identified, and they identify themselves as a member of Community of Neighborhood Watch. And so the police aren't going to knock on their door. And we're not going to use the information that they have and make necessarily anybody a witness, or in some ways we can go about solving crime avoiding the need to bring their identity out. And that's what it's all about. We need this level of community contact. People have to have faith in the systems. They do work, and we're grateful for the level of it.
Beyond Community Watch, are there specific ways that individual citizens in Annapolis can help to advance the police work, basically help them in their jobs?
Well, thanks, Mike. You know, there's a lot of ways that the community helps the police. I mean, everything that we do in the community, and I mean everything from 911 calls to showing up to handle reports to meeting with them in a national night out to showing up at community meetings, is frequent, and it is so important that people understand what we do in police work, and that we understand police officers what the community expects. You know, there's just the level of interaction is on a continuum. Like, so there's not necessarily one thing that I'm going to tell the community to do today that's different than what we would need all the time. And that's patience and understanding. You know, police officers try their best. There are, you know, instances where we fall short of our mark and we want to do more. And there are complaints, but we want people to understand that this is a work in progress, and that Annapolis' safety highly depends and is interrelated with everything that we do with the community. So, you know, folks in the community, be patient and have the understanding. We're out there. We're trying to be out there more than ever before, and you know, I have expectations of the police officers, and you should too. You know, there are numbers beyond 911 to call. You know, 410-260-2911, of course, is our non-emergency line for Annapolitans who need police service that, again, doesn't rise to the level of an urgent situation. And our general number is 268-9000 for anything that we can do of any help beyond reporting a crime, including our recruitment effort, which we're head over heels pushing right now. So we're looking for great candidates, and we welcome anybody who wants to join an excellent police department.
What are the greatest challenges that you see facing the Annapolis Police Department today?
Well, I think one of the greatest challenges I mentioned is hiring. Not just hiring people to be police officers, but continuing with the high standards that have been in place in this agency. It's an outstanding police department, and it's a great city. And you know, we want people who are committed to this job, and so we're painstakingly looking for the best candidates, and there's national competition. So when I say we're going out, we have to go out. We have to make this police department in this city better than the next, and the city is better than the next. People have to see that. Another huge concern that I have, that I think that people have to realize, is the way neighborhoods relate to one another. We have language barriers in Annapolis. We have a growing Latino population, law-abiding citizens like others. And we have to ensure that we have language lines, which we now do. We have to hire police officers and train proficiency in being able to speak Spanish. And we're seeing this, and it's not peculiar to Annapolis. It's elsewhere, and it's by and large everywhere. And so we have to have that cross-cultural understanding, not just with the police, but we want to promote it in the community so that we can understand where we're going and how we can solve problems that are affecting us.
Right. You're absolutely right. Annapolis is a very diverse community, racially and ethnically. And it's just my general observation, although I don't have the statistics, hopefully you will have some. It's my general observation that the Annapolis Police Department is very well represented in terms of its own ethnic balance and also gender balance as well. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, we are, and we are an equal opportunity police department, and we have to be. And this isn't just because we want to be and we have to be, it's because it's the only way to conduct business. It's the best way to conduct business, where there's that cross-cultural understanding that the people we serve not only have respect for the police officers, they have identification with them in a lot of ways. And we will strive to continue to do that. And it's not, and I'll be very clear, it's not about balancing any numbers at all. It's about getting the best police officers. And we do have the best police officers, and we have the best police officers in all cultures here. So we're proud of that, and we're going to continue in that respect.
You know, one of the problems that have come up in Annapolis in recent years is that there was a spate of hate crime and hate incident activities. A notorious neo-Nazi group got involved in distributing hate literature around the city of Annapolis. All the various neighborhoods had this experience. Could you elaborate a little bit? Of course, the people that got called is your department. Your department got calls from people who were concerned about it and say, what can the police do about this? But of course, there's some legal issues that are involved here. Could you elaborate a little bit? And I know you're familiar with the difference between a hate incident and a hate crime.
Okay, Mike, thanks. And just to say, the literature that you're referring to, I believe, was also put out to Anne Arundel County at large.
Yes,
and it had gone on for several years. And the persons that do this very well could have malintentions, and they want to stir problems, and they want to stir emotions, and they want folks to react in ways. Annapolis, fortunately, has not had very many, and I will say we've had very few hate crimes, and I'll distinguish briefly with you over the years, and we're happy with that, and you and I have talked about that. Hate literature and hate speech and so forth and so on sometimes is protected for good or bad. First Amendment privilege to say what you want in most cases unless it rises to the level of action, and that therein lies the difference. When hate thoughts and hate speech converts to action where there's harm, and that harm is real, then we can, and it is legislated, and we can go in and we can make arrests and we can do enforcement, and we have our partners in the state's attorney's office that bring cases. If somebody puts out a letter that hates a particular group, ethnic, racial, and there's bias, in many cases there's little we can do about that speech because they have the right under time, place, and manner to do this, but they can't incite riots, and they can't do things, and they can't litter, and they can't do those things that are per se illegal. So, the state's attorney's office has told me that there are a handful of state's attorneys that actually screen hate crime and hate literature to see if there's a prosecutable cases, and there has been prosecution in Annapolis. I will say this, to put it in perspective, we have fortunately little, and we're always on guard for complaints of that sort, and we've set up a process that we can do this better.
Chief Pristoop, I would like to thank you for being on our program today, and I would like to thank you viewers for tuning in to our program as well, and please join us again on Annapolis Mosaics. If you would like additional information about the Annapolis Human Relations Commission, simply jot down the information that's on the screen before you. You can reach us at 410-263-7998 or by email at hrcommission@annapolis.gov. And always remember the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "We have flown the air like birds and swum the sea like fishes, but have yet to learn the simple act of walking the earth as brothers and sisters."